Everyone. Corey Lancaster has joined us, and I'm super excited. There was definitely a tech issue, I think, on my end. And we decided, should we reschedule or should we just go with it? And
It's
we
good.
know that a lot of people were waiting to hear Corey today. So we decided not to wait. So, with that in mind, I'm super excited to have Corey here with us today. You all, if you were watching a little bit ago, you saw his book, AI Security Under Fire, and really cutting through the hype. He's the expert. So, Corey, before I talk about some of the awesome things, I mean, you got to be careful how much time we spend because you do have a long list of accomplishments. Okay. So we'll try to keep it to a minimum here because the thing is that we want to make sure that that we really stick to the three topics that
Sure.
are going to be helpful to your potential
Good.
clients. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. Okay. So welcome again. And can you let everybody know just where you're streaming in from a geographical standpoint,
The
part of
Washington,
the
D.C.
world?
area, Northern Virginia.
Okay. Cool. Cool. And the reason why I want everyone to know that is Corey is very involved also in his local community. He speaks to many different groups and organizations and does networking events, things like that. So you'll want to keep that in mind if you happen to be in his area, right?
Awesome. Yes.
So,
Thanks.
and the other thing about Corey is he really enjoys meeting, like connecting with, with his LinkedIn audience, and that's super important because really there's no reason for us to build our audiences if we're not going to figure out, how we can help that, how we can help our connections, or how our connections can help us, right?
Absolutely.
So it's important to know that. So, anyways, I'm going to turn it over to you, Corey. Anything top of mind before we get into the questions
No, I'm
and
just
all the
excited to be
help?
here. No, I was on the live stream as well, and we just couldn't get in. It wasn't working right, but I'm just happy to jump in. I don't think we need to do a long list of intros and stuff like that. You did a fine job of doing that on the first session, but just high level.
Oh, did
26.
I?
Yeah,
Good. Well,
I have 26 years of cybersecurity, experience. I was in the military for 10 years. Grew up in St. Louis, lived in about 4 or 5 different states. But today's topic is really IT and IT security. So let's kind of dive into that.
yes, I think that's a great idea. So, understanding that our audience are CEOs and founders for the most part. Okay, what tell us what you think is most important when they think about AI and all the hype that's going around. What do you think is most important
Well,
for
like
them
the
to know?
books, the title of the book kind of spells it out, right? AI security, um, and cutting through the hype, right? I
Mhm,
think that there's a lot of misinformation, not even misinformation. There's a lot of misconceptions and
mhm,
misinformation out there when it comes to AI. It's just like anything else, right? Whether we're trying to protect healthcare records, social security numbers, credit card numbers, AI is just another data type that we need to put our arms around. So I think as a CEO, I think that if you're not using it, you're going to be behind very quickly.
mhm.
But if you don't know how to use it safely, you're going to be underwater pretty quickly. So I think as a business owner, those are kind of the top things to keep in mind. Use it properly, understand it, and realize there's a lot of hype around it. But at the same time, like anything, you wouldn't give someone a loaded weapon without giving them some instructions first, right? So if something has
Exactly.
the ability to take you down or destroy your business, I think you owe it to yourself to do due diligence and to make sure that you fulfill those basic requirements before you deploy that across your organization.
Right, right. That's great. Now, moving on to the second topic that we're going to talk about, regulatory compliance.
Mhm.
Now, I know there's a broad range of clients that you deal with, starting small to medium size all the way up through enterprise. But what would you like to tell the audience about the importance in regulatory compliance?
Well, I think a lot of it is people don't know what they don't know, right? And
Mhm.
I would go on record to say most organizations do not have someone that is constantly looking for updates and changes to regulatory compliance. It is not the most fun topic or subject, and I don't think that
I
anybody's like,
agree.
hey, what's new today? Let's go find out what is California doing. Like no one's doing that, right? So you just don't know what you don't know. So you definitely need to know how the world works and what data types mandate certain restrictions and requirements, and what buckets do you fall in from a regulatory perspective. But as a business owner, when it comes down to regulatory compliance, it's really kind of simple. It's just know where you're liable, right? It's all about risk.
Mhm.
It's all about risk mitigation. If you have social security numbers, if you have financial data, if you have certain data types. I mean, technically speaking, if I give you my business card in an electronic format, you're supposed to
Mhm.
encrypt it and protect it because you have potentially my name, my address, phone number, email address, work email, all those data types together mandate by law, you should encrypt that data. So it's one thing if I hand you my business card. It's another thing if I electronically send you something. When you own that record, you become what is called a data custodian, the data owner. And once
Mhm.
you own that data,
Mhm.
you're responsible for protecting that data. So it's kind of ridiculous to think like, hey, encrypt this guy's business card if it's handed to me digitally. But depending on how many data types that is to identify me individually as a person, the regulatory compliance would mandate that I could sue you if you were to get breached and that information gets left out, then you're kind of liable for that information. So, that's an extreme case, but I'm just giving you, a perspective of what the law actually says versus how we implement it daily.
Mhm. Well, and I'm just looking through your book here because as you, if you, while you were listening to the last live stream, I I think you heard me say, really, this is the book. I know you're humble, okay, so I'll say it, but this is the book that CEOs and founders can rely on to use as a guide, not as a substitute for
Right.
your company, because I still think, obviously that would be the most valuable to have you come in there for the ones that, with fractional support. But this book, it's not a difficult read at all, and it's short and to the point.
Right.
And I know there's one section in there when you talk about you use the words data and diva. So I just have to ask, what, can you give us a few thoughts behind that before we go on to the third and final
Well,
topic?
first, I try to make it fun. I mean, we work a lot. We spend a lot of times with, excuse me, sometimes our coworkers more than our families, right? So when I think about work,
Right,
I try
right.
to do my best to try to make it fun, So
Mhm.
when I use the term data and diva, divas are special, and we love
Mhm.
them and we hate them at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So data is the same
Right,
way, right? We all want the data. We want the
right.
data. We want to manipulate the data. We want to leverage the data. We want to enhance our processes, our business for the data. We want to enrich our decision making because of data. But we don't want to go through the regulatory compliance. We don't want to go through the audits. We don't want to go through the recommendations. We don't want to go through the protection, the encryption, the data storage, the processing power, all of those things that associate on the back end of data we don't want, but yet we always ask for the front end part of the data. So that's what I mean by, data is the diva. We when a diva walks in with her fancy outfit on, we kind of look at her funny, but at the same time, it's kind of what we like, but that comes at a cost.
Yes. Okay. All right. And it is very fun, by the way, this book. You know what I'm saying? There's not just the go-to information in there, but it's written, it's an easier read.
Easy to read. Yeah, I tried to pull it up. I mean, the first iteration of the book was very technical. And one thing I always try to do is I reread the book as if I never read it before. And it was kind of wah, and it just got dry, and it was more like a tech manual than it was a guide. And so when you think about the C-suite, yes, they need to have some technical abilities, and some of the lingo needs to be in a technical perspective. But for the most part, we're talking about business risk, transferring risk, vendor risk management. We're not down in the ones and zeros and firewall rules and ACLs and protections and registry keys. We're not down in the weeds with it. So the first this is probably the third iteration of that book, but the first iteration was very technical. The first one, I tried to bring in more of the fun part of it, but fun and tech didn't really work. So once I brought it up to more of a C-suite level, it gave me the flexibility to kind of make jokes and kind of have fun with it. So I think it really worked out in the end as not only a practical guide to show you step by step and teach you the things you need to know, but also fun, have some fun with it. I try to always make car references or kind of references in there to just make life a little bit more uplifting than just some boring, AI. There's nothing boring about AI, right? So how are you going to talk about AI and boring? It doesn't work. So make it fun, make it readable, and then also give teams. The C-suite teams, that would be a great Christmas gift. Just give your IT staff the book and say, hey, by the way, this is a fun read. Make sure we understand it and know it. And as we adopt our AI evolution, let's make sure we're following these guidelines and principles stated within the book.
Right. Exactly. And, earlier, Corey, when you were talking about, people don't know what they don't know. But the thing is that in the position that you're in as being an author and then the guide, to be able to help people navigate through this, it's super important that you're, as the expert, as a thought leader, that you're able to tell them what they need to know, as opposed, and cut through the hype. And that's what I view you as being valuable, because I find that a lot of CEOs and founders that do not have that tech background tend to be a little bit overwhelmed, or a lot overwhelmed sometimes. Okay. And other times they are adverse, they're just resistant. And to your point at the beginning about, about AI, there's really no point. It's not going to serve them to resist it. And Peter Diamandis, he talks about, much like you were saying, companies are either going to be integrating AI or they're going to be out of business. Right. So it's not to say that there couldn't be some exceptions, but I think those exceptions would be few. It's in order to keep up with competition and be able to scale, it's going to involve getting them where they need to be. So
yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And that brings us to our third and final point for today is the audit.
Right.
So I know you heard me talk about it, but they want to hear it from your perspective.
Well, I mean, back to you don't know what you don't know, right? So even if you go in through and you read the book, you understand AI adoption, you understand your regulatory compliance, you still need, in my opinion, internal and external audits, right? You have your internal team go through the steps and processes of an audit internally, but then you bring in an expert to audit the audit, right? As a lot of business owners have CPAs, but then they have a CPA for their CPA, right? Because you don't even trust them, right? Especially like big corporations, right? You have multiple layers of CPA. So same thing with that. I mean, you're going to need an audit. You can self-attest, till you're blue in the face, but your team's going to hide things from you, right? Because Like when I come into an organization, one of the first things I try to explain to people as an IT security person, an expert or an SME, if you come into an organization, I'm basically saying, hey, who in here is not doing their jobs because I want to fix it? You know, and that doesn't go over well with someone that's been at a company 20 years, right? So you have to deliver that information in a way to say, like, look, no one's perfect, right? We all have our set of blinders based on our past and our past experiences. My job is to, remove that rock and show you that snake underneath there that you may not have seen, so that no one gets bitten later.
Very wise. And so I'd like to hear before we wrap up here, and maybe I'll check the chat to see if there happen to be any questions coming in. There'll definitely be questions that I would guess in the comments, and we can. I was going to ask you to put the link for the book in the comments. Would be great.
Okay.
But so people that want to purchase it can purchase it. But tell us about CAAS. Like, I'd really like to hear, as the visionary, as the founder, I'd really like to hear, really what do you envision
it's kind of
for that?
Thank you. Going through, my career, I've always found that the smaller businesses just struggle the most. And it's not that people don't want to help them, but everybody wants the big fish. They want the big $100 million government contract. And what's funny, they are small themselves trying to get that contract. But yet, when it comes down to the security element, we're usually last on the list, right? So I think there's a need in the marketplace for, we can say 50 million or below. In my opinion, if you have 50 million revenue, I think you can afford a CISO or at least a director of security. You should have some type of IT security department at that level. That's just my opinion. But security, people look at security, they think it's a cost model, and it's not. I mean, without security, you can't make any money. So it's a part of your day-to-day business. This is not a add-on, slap-on thing at the end, like, oh, we've done X, now let's add security. No, it needs to be baked from within, starting with the users and stuff like that. So CAAS was kind of created out of that perspective of, hey, small businesses need help too. Yes, we'll do big business, sure. We'll do government contracts. We'll do all the big things too. But, bread and butter focus, quick wins, most impact, most bang for the buck for the customer is to bring us in as an expert to help them, guide them with our Fortune 100 experiences, bring that down to them and say, look, this is the most efficient way to do it. See, that's the one thing that's good. Bringing in CAAS, we have over 100 years experience between the four of us. When we come in and we do something, you're getting all of that experience at once. I mean, it'd be hard to beat us. It'd be hard to beat us from a, solution perspective. We bring a lot to the table, especially to the SMB market, which is where we want to focus and help out, because we're only, as a country, we're only strong as our weakest link. And if we're doing help either with the government or with healthcare or with infrastructure, no matter what, it's the small businesses that are, in my opinion, affect our economy the most. Because as a small business, if they're compromised, that means the big companies and big organizations get compromised, the government got compromised, and then we all suffer. So, that's kind of the reason that we created it and our focus.
Yes, and I absolutely love that, because what I hear you saying is, because of the team that you've put together, you're offering the small to the medium-sized businesses enterprise level experience. Like you said, cumulatively, that's huge. Right? I mean, because what I see, with my experience in a different part of technology with, IT and systems and network, is the fact too, though, that just because a company has an IT manager, that doesn't mean that they're skilled or that they have the credentials to be a CISO.
Correct. And it was interesting. I just made a post on LinkedIn the other day about that simple fact that great IT security. Now, I've had people, for example, I managed a team, back in the days at a telecommunications company, and I had people in there that have written books, that had made frameworks, that had patents, and all of this stuff. Right? They're great,
Right, right.
great, brilliant minds. Right? Now, not gonna name any names, but like one of them, there's no way I would ever let them talk to a client. There's one of them, there's no way I would let them write an email to a client. And then there's another
Okay.
way, another one, I'll never let them in person be with a client. But they're all brilliant in
Hmm.
their own
Hmm.
ways. So just because
Of
you're
course.
brilliant at compliance or audit or network or whatever, doesn't mean that you can blend all that in and deliver that in a package that is palatable not only to the board but to the C-suite, right? Because we need board level influence and permission per se, or go ahead buy-in. But it's that C-suite that you really got to kind of sell, if you will, into, hey, we need to revamp this, we need to redo this, or we need to get rid of that, we need to spend this investment. That's a skill that comes over, I can't say even over time. That's a skill that either you have it or you don't. You know, um,
Yeah, that's
Great
right. I
engineers
agree.
can
Hmm.
be groomed to do a lot of things, but I know some brilliant people. They have no desire to talk to people, no desire to do a presentation, no desire to talk to the C-suite, no desire to get funding for something.
Hmm.
They just want to do their thing and go. They want to build things and go home. And so
Right.
just because you have that great IT security engineer does not mean they're going to be a great CISO. That is 100%.
Right, right. And from a skill level, like you said, like maybe it's that
Right.
they have limited interest or they want to focus on that. But that is a problem though, obviously, because if you have people that don't have the expertise, it could be another C-suite member
Yep.
that could be doing cybersecurity, and that puts the company at risk. I mean, what do you have to say? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I don't like that either. The CISO is, we get abused. I mean, think about it. It's the only role where everything is affected by us. Yet we have the smallest budgets, the smallest teams, etc. We don't ask the CFO to go figure out and analyze a vulnerability risk on a database or a web server. Well,
No,
we don't ask the
no,
the HR manager to come in and analyze our competitive risk. But like the CISO is like you have to be the jack of all trades. You got to know financials.
mhm,
You got to know the CIO's job. You know the CEO's job, the HR's job, supply chain job, risk management job, all in one. So the CISO is really asked to do a lot of things and wear a lot of different hats. And typically speaking, and I'm generalizing, most engineers are introverted. We don't really do a whole lot of
mhm.
extrovert type things. Most of us security engineers. I'm obviously extroverted, but like to have that blend is, I would say, rare. And it does require you to be able to know and understand a lot of different concepts. I'm not a CPA, but I understand the financial models and concepts behind them.
Right.
So therefore, I can give an IT solution that will be viable to the company and actually make us profitable. So yeah, I think we have to definitely have to be a jack of all trades. They ask a lot of us. And they definitely don't treat the rest of the C-suite the same way. That's for sure.
Right. And as you know, I've worked with a lot of CISOs, still work with a lot of CISOs, but worked with a lot of CISOs and spoke to a lot of technology organizations and training them before COVID in person. And one of the things that I learned was that term RPE. And I'll never forget, I'm sure you know, a resume producing event. So what the CISOs would tell me, and they took it in stride. That's why it was amazing to me because a lot of them would explain it like sometimes they were the fall
Fall guy,
people, fall guys or
fall
girls,
person. Yep.
and right, because they weren't able to get the right security measures or what the right architecture in place to protect against the breach. So they would call, they would say, okay, well, could be an RPE. So the thing that they would talk about amongst themselves and when I was at these events would be RPEs. like when's the next one happening? Because, sometimes it would be, less than a year. Someone had just been hired on, but then
Mhm.
there was an RPE, So the tenure was kind of,
Sure.
minimal sometimes.
Mhm.
But I'll never forget that because when I first started hanging out with all of them, I would hear them, they would never say resume producing event, until I asked because they all knew it as an RPE.
Right.
But like you said, it's super important that CISOs are jack of all trades and resilient, right?
Yes.
One of the things that I like about CAAS, and we'll wrap up here soon, but I'm going to check for questions. But one of the things I like about CAS is that whole fractional element. The fact that,
Yeah.
and I'd like you to speak about that a little
Yeah,
bit on value.
and I have another LinkedIn post that I kind of separated. So remember, CAS is CISO as a service, right? And that's a tad
Right.
different from fractional CISO, or part-time CISO. So I think the analogy that I posted was kind of like insurance, right? We all have car
Hmm.
insurance, right? But you have car insurance to prepare
Hmm.
you for when something bad happens, right? We don't wait till
Right.
something bad happens to go buy car insurance. You're too late at that point, and you
Hmm.
might not get it, right? So the
Hmm.
fractional CISO is still your hourly, task-based, task-oriented type service, or function. I can't say service. Now, when you think this about the
Hmm.
service, let's think about the security aspect of an organization, security function, security culture, security roadmap, strategy, planning, the idea of the security in the organization. That's more of the service. So it's not like we don't have task-based, you know, milestones to meet, but we're coming in saying, okay, A, we're not subject to your political pressure. Okay, because we're delivering a service, right? When you go in to get your oil change, you might tell them what type you want, whether you want full synthetic or
Right.
whatever, but they're going to say, well, we only serve Valvoline here. Well, no, I want Pennzoil. Well, then you need to go somewhere else because we only serve
Hmm.
Valvoline. Well, I'll give you the full synthetic, but I'm giving you Valvoline. Well, no, 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 I only put Pennzoil. Then I'm sorry. Then this isn't the place you need to come. And
Right.
CISOs and professionals need to be able to be okay with that, right? So when we come in and say this is the service that we're providing, I'm not giving you the 1, 2, 3 choice. There's the right way to
Hmm.
do things. Now, of course, we're going to size it up with size, scope, and budget, but there's a right way to do something in the wrong way. If I say for this situation we need Valvoline, I know you like Pennzoil. I know Pennzoil has been your buddy for
Hmm.
20 years, but you're here to get your oil change. We do Pennzoil and we do it right, and we've proven that it'll work for you and it'll save you money. So you got to be okay with standing by what you want to do, but the service aspect of it is it's not hourly. We might have one task that might take 3 months. Do you want me to
Right.
charge you
Right.
hourly? Because if I charge you hourly, it's going to be probably 3 times as expensive, right? So it's
Right.
better to
Right.
pay for the service. It's like, hey, I pay for Netflix. I can go get online and download and buy all the movies that I want and own them all. But it's easier for me to pay
Right.
the service for Netflix, and I pick and
Hmm.
choose what I need at that time. So
Hmm.
although we have a smorgasbord, so to speak, of services and things that we do, we really try to put it down in like 5 major categories, regulatory, AI, consulting, risk management, bigger buckets that those tasks can be broken down under. But the major concept is that we're that insurance policy before you need the insurance versus these step-by-step things that you want to do from a security perspective. Not that we won't do them.
Right.
That's just like not really the model.
Right. Okay. So the net though is, Corey, that if they work with your company,
Mhm.
then they're getting enterprise grade experience, IP, the whole
For
thing
SMEs that have
for
been doing it. Yeah.
fraction.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
and that is something I really want people to hear, because the companies are going to be able to get a really solid return on that. and be able to minimize the risk.
And for the SMBs, I just have a heart for them. You know, an SMB, a small medium business. I really have a heart for them because I've just seen them struggle. You know, and it's really not fair because if you don't have $300,000 to do a CMMC level 3,
right?
Then you don't. Now, with that said, if you're at the CMMC level 3 area, you should be at that 50 million plus. So you should have a dedicated security team at that level. But when you're only 2 million or 3 million or 500K, you know, how do you still get the same things done? So we're here to solve those problems and help them get through that. And, you know, you feel good, you know, it's like, you know, we can all go make money. And I've worked for companies that just, you know, bottom line, you know, P&L, sell, you know,
right.
And that's just, you know, I mean, I guess it has its place in the market, but for me, I want to look at someone and say, I know I help them and I minimize risk, whether that be in healthcare or retail or government or whatever. You know, that's what really gets you up in the morning and make you want to come back.
Exactly. And that's what I like about your book too, because I feel any business owner could get value out of that because, you know, you have the healthcare examples, you have the technology examples. So it's, you know, that's why I feel it really is the go-to guide. So in closing, I'd love you to talk, and I know you made a post about it, but I'd love you to talk a little bit about the limited time offer
Okay.
that you have for people, and what their best next step would be if they like what they're hearing about that.
Well, through December, it's 50% off risk assessments and policy review.
That's huge. Yeah, 50%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the two major things that every organization needs to do. I would argue that one might do a risk assessment annually and maybe every other year, but you know, annually is probably good, especially if you have new technologies and stuff like that. So that's going through December. Two qualifiers must be purchased before December 31st, and the work needs to start within the next, I think 45 days or 2 months or something like that. So
okay.
those are small requirements to meet. You know, you can find us at, you know, DM me on LinkedIn or Corey at yourcaas.com. CAAS is CAAS. Yeah, but I think that's great. And it's a good way to start the new year off, knowing where you're going to go. And usually, you know, I build relationships. So, you know, they're clients until we meet. And then after that, it's a relationship, you know, and it's a partnership. And you know, you help me, I help you, and we'll go together.
Yes, that's super exciting. So will you please put the link for people to purchase your book in the comments of one or both of these lives, if you wouldn't mind? That would be awesome. And then we're going to be scheduling a few other, at least 2, maybe more, other live events, and we'll be able to focus in on some particular topics. We're also going to be doing some private Zoom events so that Corey will be able to really dive in deeper to some of those important topics. And you know, a lot of the audience are going to be CEOs and founders, so there will be you know, some potential opportunities for networking for people that that show up. And you know, it's important to know who you're in the room with. And Corey is such a great person that, you know, he really cares about making a difference. And one of the things that I think about when I think about you, Corey, and Cass is the fact, like, when you're working with those small to medium sized businesses, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you and Cass could definitely be their before and after.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know, like,
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. Especially with AI now. I mean, like, just training the people how to use it correctly. You know, it's one thing to say, I want to build my private, you know, LLM, but,
Right,
you know,
right.
but it's another thing to say, well, we're using ChatGPT, but, and that's great. But are you is it locked down? Have you done basic procedures? Are you training your users on how to use it effectively so they're not putting in your proprietary data in that? There's some basic things that you can do to leverage it, but you also need to. I always tell people I'm the gas and the brake, right? So I'm the governance guy. So I'll put the brakes on things to make sure we do it right before we do it. But then on the AI side, I can 10x your employees by helping them work faster, easier, or smarter by leveraging AI. So I like doing that. All my references are car references, but like I said, I'm the gas and the brake.
Yeah, and I love that. And that's something too that everybody can relate to. So I hope that everyone enjoyed, hearing Corey's thoughts and where he's taking CAAS, because there are so many CEOs and founders that I know that are in my audience, that are in your audience, Corey, that can really benefit from taking that next best step. And would you say that if they have those two qualifiers, should they, that, like you said, they can either DM you, they can email you, but like, I I would recommend that they do it, sooner rather than later, because if they're able to take advantage of the.
Yeah, and the holidays are upon us, but there's still work to be done. It doesn't take long to do an intake form to figure out kind of what the basics are. If you care about your business doesn't stop because of the holidays, right? So let's make sure that
No,
we continue on with servicing your business. It's like a car, right? Let's, bring it in. Let's just change the oil. Let's give it a look over. Let's see what's going on. And then we'll figure out what we need to do for this summer trip.
exactly. And in planning. So I love your philosophy, and I'm looking to see nothing but good things coming from CAS. So we will be scheduling other live streams, and I'll be on the lookout, if some people have some particular topic requests,
Okay.
and do get in touch with Corey if you're looking to get something just lined up. You don't even have to, if you qualify, because you have 30 to 45 days, like Corey said, to actually, bring them in and get them started. But at least if you lock it in before the end of the year,
Yeah, 50%
you're
off. I
going
mean,
to.
can't beat that. And it's a great way to, you know, um, set yourself up right for next year. And again, once people meet the full team, which is coming soon, once they meet the full team, like I said, I don't think there's a problem we can't solve or haven't seen, because we literally over 100 years of experience, and maybe like 110, 115 or something like that. But
That's
we're,
incredible.
we're gonna
Yeah.
be we're gonna be we're gonna be helping folks do great things, and keep them safe while doing it.
Yes. And having fun.
Yeah,
Yes. So
number one, gotta have fun.
yes, they will have fun, and they will be protected. So, okay, great. All right. Well, thank you so much,
Oh, yeah,
Corey. I'm sorry about that tech issue that we had earlier, but I appreciate you hanging in and being flexible enough to jump on when we
sure.
did figure it out.
Yeah.
So I will look forward to seeing everybody next time, and wishing everyone a wonderful rest of your week.
All right. Cheers. Thanks.